Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome to Quick Break Games. So in 2006, developer TT Games released their second LEGO Star Wars game, LEGO Star Wars 2, the original trilogy, and of course it adapted the original 3 Star Wars films in LEGO form. Along with the main home console version, there was a separate handheld version designed for Nintendo's Gameboy Advance system. Unlike the GBA version for the first LEGO Star Wars, which was developed by Kryptonite Games, the development of the sequel was shifted to Amaze Entertainment, who would go on to make several handheld versions of LEGO games. So we're going to be doing a retrospective and analysis, breaking down the gameplay to see how LEGO Star Wars 2, the original trilogy on Game Boy Advance holds up today, and how it compares to its 2005 predecessor. When booting up the game, the menus are pretty similar to the last game with the space backgrounds and everything. Once we start a new game, we spawn in the Mos Eisley Cantina as Princess Leia and a generic rebel trooper. So yes, the Cantina hub world from the home console versions made it into the GBA version this time around, which is awesome. Unfortunately, there's not too much to do here. There's no random characters walking around to start fights with or anything like that. There are doors where you can start each of the 3 movies, episodes 4 through 6, but Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi will be locked at the start. There's this area towards the back where the Cantina band plays, but otherwise it's a pretty useless area. Other than selecting a level to play, the main thing to do in the Cantina is to purchase things at the shop, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So let's go through the episode 4 door and start A New Hope with the first level, Blockade Runner. Much like the Secret Plans level in the home console version, Blockade Runner takes place on the Tantive 4 as Darth Vader and his stormtroopers overtake it. We begin as a rebel trooper who is a blaster class character. Blaster characters can shoot enemies from a distance as well as build LEGO objects found on the ground. In this game, when you collect LEGO studs from destroying things, it fills the stud bar at the top of the screen. This works exactly like the home console version, where if you collect enough studs to fill it completely, you'll gain true Jedi status for that level, which is required for 100% completion. This was not in the GBA version of the first game, so I appreciate that they added it here. I will say though, true Jedi can be pretty difficult to get in a lot of levels. Every time you die, and you'll probably die quite a bit, you lose a massive number of studs that you can't get back, so you'll need to avoid death quite a bit for true Jedi. Oh yeah, and speaking of dying, this is another big change they made this time around. You now immediately respawn right where you got killed, just like on the home console games. This is a massive improvement because if you remember in the first game, if you died, you'd have to restart to the beginning of the area or checkpoint, which made the game significantly more challenging to beat. So now when you die, the main penalty is losing studs for the true Jedi bar instead of having to replay a chunk of the level, so big improvement here. Another improvement is character switching. As you battle your way through stormtroopers, you'll come across R2-D2 and C3PO. You can now just freely switch to them, unlike in the first game where the game had to pause, break apart your current character, and then build your new one. So multiple playable characters can be on screen at once now. As for R2 and C3PO, they play pretty much how you expect. They can hack open astromech and protocol droid panels, and R2 again has the ability to hover over small gaps, but it's not really used nearly as much as it was in the first game. As for this level, eventually you'll meet up with Princess Leia and you get the GBA version of the scene where Leia leaves the plans with R2. From there you'll continue fighting your way through waves of enemies. There's a couple more new mechanics in this game, like for example these red switches on walls where you need to shoot them to unlock new areas, and these elevators where you can press R to move them up and down. Stuff like this adds a bit of interactivity to the levels that the last game lacked. You'll then reach the escape pod where R2 and C3PO are launched onto Tatooine, ending the first level. Upon completing a level, you'll unlock free play mode, which I'll talk more about towards the end, as well as the ability to skip to episodes 5 and 6. But we're going to continue in chronological order with episode 4, level 2, which is called Tatooine. Here we get to play as Luke Skywalker's Tatooine variant, who is a blaster character. After you battle through some Tusken Raiders, you'll encounter Ben Kenobi and unlock him as a playable character. He's our first Jedi class character, which means he can attack with a lightsaber, use the Force on objects as well as enemies, and has the high jumping ability to reach previously inaccessible areas. Force abilities are used with the L button this time. Ben Kenobi can Jedi mind trick enemies to stun them for a bit. Unlike the first game, there's no longer a special meter, so you can use the Force as much as you'd like. A little bit later on the level, we have a LEGO GBA version of the famous Obi-Wan You're My Only Hope scene, and then we get into the action of fighting more sand people. You'll end up in the Mos Eisley Cantina where the GBA version confirms that Han shot first. Chewbacca joins the party as another blaster character, and you meet up with Han at his Millennium Falcon, where we take off towards the Death Star. Level 3 is Death Star Rescue. It opens with the scene of Alderaan getting blown up as we enter the Death Star hangar to rescue Princess Leia. There's going to be a ton of enemies in this one, so be prepared if you're trying to get true Jedi status. I was surprised to see the Stormtrooper helmet mechanic make its way into this version, so you can walk up to these helmet dispensers, puts a helmet on you, and you can access Imperial Door or Force Field panels. And speaking of things from the home console version, throughout this game you'll encounter mini-kit collectibles like these. So it's great to see the classic LEGO game mini-kit on Gameboy Advance after we had those sort of weird Death Star plan collectibles in the first game. There's 10 mini-kits to find in every level, so they bumped that up from the 5 Death Star plans, but to be honest, they probably should have just kept it at 5. A lot of these levels are simply too short to hide 10 mini-kits around, so oftentimes you'll find a bunch of them just sitting out in the open, almost impossible to miss. But if you do collect all 10 in a level, you'll unlock an additional character, so I like that they give you some incentive to do it other than just for 100% completion. But anyway, back to the level. This one introduces the Imperial Officer enemy. These guys are pretty tough as they're basically damage sponges, but once you reach the detention block area, you destroy the force field generator, then proceed forward into Princess Leia's cell. This level ends with a super lengthy cutscene involving our characters getting stuck in the trash compactor and the droids needing to save them. I mean, seriously, this cutscene goes on for like 2 or 3 minutes. It's pretty crazy. But next up is Death Star Escape. As was the case with the last game, these GBA versions like to reuse a lot of areas, and LEGO Star Wars 2 is no different. This level is basically the previous level, except now we're playing it in reverse with the classic trio, Luke, Han, and Leia. So again, prepare for lots of enemy spam as you fight through waves of stormtroopers and officers on the way back to the Falcon. This level ends with a cutscene of Darth Vader striking down Obi-Wan. I like how they use these little speech bubbles to communicate the cutscenes in this version. But with Obi-Wan and now with the Force, we can proceed to the final level of A New Hope called Trench Run. Vehicle levels have now made their way onto Game Boy Advance, and Trench Run is the first of several. Here we play as an X-Wing. You can attack with the B button to fire normal laser shots, which is good for taking out basic enemies like TIE fighters. The A button allows you to drop blue bombs to destroy things like sentry turrets. In the second area, you're required to take out 10 TIE fighters before you can proceed to the next area. They go down in 1 or 2 shots, so it's really not too difficult. The third area has you do the same thing again, but this time with only 5 TIE fighters, and you'll end up in the final exhaust port section. There's going to be a single sentry turret on top of the Death Star's exhaust port. Drop a blue bomb on that and watch the entire Death Star explode. I do wish they would have incorporated a boss fight against Darth Vader's TIE Interceptor or something, but that wasn't really in the home console version either, so I guess I'm asking for too much. But completing Trench Run finishes Episode 4, A New Hope. So now let's head back to the Cantina and check out what kinds of things we can get from the shop. You can purchase hints for 200 studs each, which are pretty much useless information that you likely already figured out on your own. Like for example, the first hint literally just tells you to collect studs. The shop also allows you to buy any characters that you've unlocked for purchase by playing through the story or collecting all 10 mini-kits in a level. There's also extras, and there's a lot of unique ones in this GBA version, like Washed Out Mode, Clown, or Sith Mode. There's even extras for each lightsaber color, so for example, you could have Ben Kenobi wield a red lightsaber if you wanted. For some reason they abbreviate lightsaber as LT Saber. I guess the 3 extra letters are just too much for the GBA to render or something, I don't know. Now the extra that you're really going to want is invincibility, because if you can't die, then you can't lose studs, which obviously makes getting a true Jedi in every level much easier, but also makes it easier to save up for everything else. Fortunately, it cost 1 million studs, which takes ages to get. I played through the entire game twice, avoided buying characters that I didn't need, and was still at a little under 500,000 studs, so good luck with that one. And then lastly, in the shop you can input cheat codes, but hey, we never cheat around here. But okay, enough fooling around in the Cantina, time to walk through the door for Episode 5 and begin the first level of The Empire Strikes Back, called Hoth Battle. This one opens with a cutscene of Luke trapped in the Wampa cave, but this time the Wampa ice skates into a wall off screen instead of getting his arm chopped off. They did show the arm getting cut off in the home console version, but I guess instead Amaze Entertainment wanted to go for some comic relief for the GBA version. Hoth Battle is the second vehicle level where this time we get to play as a snowspeeder. The objective here is to take out several AT-ATs by wrapping around them with your tow cable, just like they did it in the movie. It's pretty straightforward, but the probe droids can get pretty annoying due to them constantly respawning and hitting you while you're trying to fly around the AT-ATs. Once you take down an AT-AT, you just have to shoot it to fully destroy it. Do that 3 more times, and that's the entire level. This brings us to Hoth Escape, where Leia, Han, and C-3PO battle through the Echo base. You'll encounter a few force fields in this one where you need to take a roundabout path to find the generator and destroy it. C-3PO is also used a couple times to hack some doors open. Other than that, you'll eventually make it to the Millennium Falcon, where you need to take out 6 snowtroopers, and then the level ends. Han, Leia, and C-3PO take off in the Falcon for the next level called Asteroid Chase. Now this level is so incredibly short that it's a complete joke. All you do is follow a trail of gold studs, which leads to a cave, and the level ends. Like seriously, this one can easily be completed in under 30 seconds. Now there are some additional areas to fly around in and explore for minikit collectibles, but if you just follow the stud trail, this is like a 15-second level. In fact, the cutscene that plays upon completing the level is about a minute long, so it's over 2 times longer than the level itself. It would have been nice if they added a part where you go into the giant slug monster's stomach and all that, but unfortunately that's not shown. Level 4 is called Cloud City Trap, and it's a much lengthier one. The opening cutscene shows Luke on Dagobah fighting the imaginary Darth Vader. It would have been cool if they made that playable. In fact, Dagobah is not playable at all in this version. But anyways, this one has you mainly playing as Han Solo going through Cloud City. There's a lot of similar looking hallways and optional landing bay areas, making this one a bit confusing to navigate, but at first there's no combat, which is nice. In the second area, C-3PO goes off ahead, and you end up getting to rebuild him in one of the optional side rooms for a minikit, so I thought that was a nice, somewhat hidden reference in the game. You then meet up with Lando Calrissian as a new playable blaster character. In this version, Lando even has his own door panels to access secret areas for minikits. Our heroes end up getting captured, and we have the scene of Han getting frozen in carbonite. After that, the combat begins as you battle through waves of stormtroopers as Lando, Chewbacca, and Leia. You go through a lot of the same areas you already went through, but in reverse. But once you reach the Falcon, the level ends. And now for the final level of Episode 5, called Cloud City Rescue, we return to Cloud City, but this time as the Jedi class version of Luke Skywalker. This is where things get pretty repetitive because once again, you're fighting through the same hallways that we just had to go through twice in the last level. Luckily this time you do get to play in the Carbonite Chamber for our first playable lightsaber duel of the game, and man, they made lightsaber duels much easier in this one compared to the first GBA game. It works pretty much the same way where you mash the B button when you get into a lightsaber lock, but they significantly lower the intensity that you need to hit the B button, and also Darth Vader's health in general just seems like way less compared to the bosses of the first game. And then I guess it also makes it way easier when you simply respawn in this game when you die, rather than having to redo the boss fight from scratch like in the first game. But once Darth Vader hits about half health, the level transitions to the Censor Balcony area where you need to finish him off. We then get the famous Luke I am your father scene, but in GBA form, and then the level ends. So that's it for The Empire Strikes Back. It's definitely a much shorter experience compared to A New Hope, but with that, let's continue with Episode 6 for the first level of Return of the Jedi, Jabba's Palace. This is another pretty short level. This version completely skips over the stuff with Princess Leia rescuing Han Solo and Carbonite and gets right to Luke infiltrating the palace. There's a short cutscene of Luke talking with Jabba the Hutt, and then he gets dropped into the Rancor pit. The key here is to lure the new Gamorrean guard enemies towards the back gate on the left side. This will draw in the Rancor. Once you position him under the gate, you can use the Force on the nearby switch to lower it on the Rancor, defeating him. Next we have Sarlacc Pit. In this one, you again play as Jedi Luke and fight a bunch of Gamorrean guards on Jabba's sail barge. You make your way to the smaller ships on the right side, and a boss fight against Boba Fett will begin. You can't really hurt him while he's flying around, so you need to wait until you see a blue sparkle around him. This means you can use the Force to bring him to the ground, where you can get in a few hits. Repeat this a few times until Boba is defeated. There's a cutscene of Boba falling into the Sarlacc Pit, and he just kind of disappears into it, which is pretty funny, but after that, the level ends. Next we start Speeder Chase. This one opens with a cutscene of Yoda dying, which is kind of surprising considering this wasn't even shown in the home console version. Anyways, this is another vehicle level, but this one is super linear. You're pretty much following a narrow pathway of very similar looking areas, fighting stormtroopers on speeders. Just keep following the path until you reach the bunker where the level ends. There's really not too much else to say about this one, so let's move on to Episode 6, Level 4, Indoor Battle. Now, we've had a bunch of short levels in Episode 6, but Indoor Battle might be the longest level in the game. It begins with a super lengthy 2-minute long cutscene. We see C-3PO talking to the Ewoks, and then we see Luke and Leia talking about how they're really siblings. This goes on way too long, but at the same time, I can appreciate how this game's cutscenes cover material that's never shown in the home console versions. In terms of gameplay, we play as Han, Leia, and Chewbacca and have to battle loads of Imperial forces through the indoor forest. I haven't talked about the performance of this game yet, but man, this level is by far the laggiest in the game. I guess the level is just so large and open that the GBA can't really handle it, causing the frame rate to be like 10 FPS sometimes. Maybe it's best to run this one on an emulator or something because it can be a little rough on original hardware. Anyways, a lot of the environments look similar, so it can feel like a maze navigating the different areas. When you reach the bunker, you're on the right track. Head inside and you'll get a cutscene of our heroes getting captured by the Empire. It then transitions to playing as Wicket and the droids. You'll need to defeat 5 AT-STs in the area. Again, things can be a little difficult to navigate, but there's going to be different buildable traps in the area that you can lure the AT-STs into. You also need to use R2-D2 and C-3PO's hacking abilities for a couple of the traps. Once they're all taken care of, a cutscene will play of Han blowing up the shield bunker, which finishes off the level. It's now time to blow up the second Death Star in Episode 6, Level 5, Death Star 2 Battle. This is the final vehicle level where we play as the Falcon infiltrating the inside of the Death Star. This one's fairly straightforward. It's pretty similar to the previous speeder chase vehicle level where you're pretty much following a confined path, fighting any TIE fighters along the way. Eventually you'll reach the core where you just need to keep shooting at the center until it blows up, and now it's time to backtrack through all the previous areas as everything is exploding behind you. This brings us to the final level of Episode 6 and the final level of the entire game, Emperor Fight. And yeah, this is another short one. You begin by fighting Darth Vader as Luke. He is a little bit tougher this time. Just make sure to watch out for his force push move. He can easily push you down the nearby shaft. Once he gets at around half health, Vader will assist you while you battle Palpatine. Palpatine can use Force Lightning against you, but he's really not too bad. Just keep spamming your lightsaber and he'll be defeated. Now we get to a bunch of cutscenes. Palpatine falls to his supposed death down the shaft, which looks pretty close to the movie. And then after that, we see Darth Vader's death. I love how Luke takes off his helmet and then he has to swap it in for his regular headpiece. It's great how they're still able to implement signature LEGO game humor, even on this scaled back GBA version. It then cuts to Endor with our main character celebrating, and we even get to see Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Yoda's Force Ghost off to the side. And with that, that's all 16 levels of LEGO Star Wars 2 on GBA. I think the game is a little front-loaded since the Episode 4 levels just seem way longer than the other movies, but I think overall they did a pretty good job. Now I do want to talk a little bit about free play mode. You can replay all the levels in free play using any of your unlocked characters, letting you access areas you couldn't in story mode. The main goal of free play is to get all 10 minikits to unlock an additional character, but also the true Jedi status is sometimes only possible in free play mode. A couple of the Return of the Jedi vehicle levels even have alternate paths that were blocked off in story mode, so they definitely give plenty of incentive to replay the game through at least one more time. On top of that, collecting all 160 minikits in the game will unlock a secret baby Rancor character for purchase in the Cantina shop, which is an exclusive character to the GBA version. And getting True Jedi in all 16 levels will spawn a Rancor statue in the back of the Cantina, so that's pretty neat as well. Alright, so that's pretty much all there is to LEGO Star Wars 2, the original trilogy on Game Boy Advance. An initial story playthrough will likely only take you around 2 hours, but the game offers quite a bit of replayability with the free play collectibles, and of course the 1 million stud grind for the invincibility extra. A common theme you may have noticed is that they made a lot of changes to this game to get it closer to the home console version. They added things like the 10 minikit collectibles, the ability to freely switch to other characters by tagging them, having the Mos Eisley Cantina hub world and shop, the True Jedi bar, and so much more. Sure, there's still some stuff missing like the character creator and prequel characters, but compared to the first game on GBA, this game was a massive step up. Amaze Entertainment did an excellent job adapting LEGO Star Wars 2 to the GBA, and I think this is probably the best a LEGO Star Wars game could be given the GBA's limitations. If you're able to, I definitely recommend playing the Game Boy Advance version of LEGO Star Wars 2, the original trilogy. Alright, so that's going to do it for my retrospective of LEGO Star Wars 2 on Game Boy Advance. Let me know in the comments below if you've played this version, and if you have, let me know your thoughts on it. Otherwise, be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, dislike it if not, subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you guys next time here on Quick Break Games.